want to make a video to show what your final product should look like as a design folio. We're not just interested in presenting a design, we want to show the entire process that you've gone through to get to that design. Now, this is a 12-page actual IA from a year 12 student. However, yours is only meant to be 6 to 8 pages, so there's a section at the start where you don't need to worry about the first level of divergent thinking, where they try and figure out what it is they have to design. You've already been told what to design. So the second part, I'll flag it as it goes through, but we'll go through the whole thing together. I've placed this here in the OneNote just underneath our video links, so you should be able to find this and refer back to it at any point in time. But remember, it is about the journey, it is about the process, not so much about your final product. So you can see there that they've scored full marks for this one. This is an example that the QCA put out. And then it talks briefly about the tasks that they had to do. They had to go and find somebody who was in their later years. I'll just zoom so you can see the whole page. So they've done the mind map in a slightly different way. You can see that. They then move through to trying to figure out what it is they're going to actually design for their grandparents. So they've come up with a number of different ideas. That's divergent thinking. But like I said, you don't actually have to engage in this part. They then went and interviewed the stakeholder again to try and figure out what to design in the first place. Came up with a number of ideas and got the stakeholder to talk about which one they preferred. And that came down to a TV interface. So this is the first place where they've actually decided that they're going to actually make a TV interface. Now you can see that they haven't used a lot of colour in these pages. They've only used the two colours just to make it stand out a little bit. Even the photographs they've reduced back to black and white so they can point out the interesting parts of the photograph without distracting with colour. So they've started sketching different ideas for a simpler remote and a TV that's very easy to use, very accessible buttons. They've made the simple TV design there and they've taken that back to their stakeholder. You don't have to worry about that. They've started playing around with ideas for the remote. They're looking at the shape of the remote. They've actually modelled it using plasticine and then sketched over the top of the photographs of the models, just to give it the very clear shape. You can see that divergent thinking we're talking about. They've identified all the important parts of a remote. What are the ones that an older person needs to know without all those extra buttons? And then they've laid those out in different ways on the remotes. Again, still in divergent thinking mode. Taken this idea back to the people that they're designing for, and got some feedback from them. Taken this idea back, got some feedback from them. And you can see by the ticks on this that the older people actually preferred this type of remote. So they've gone back with that shape and played with the idea so much more, and you can see they've really simplified the number of buttons on the remote here. So this is what we call convergent thinking, where you take all your different ideas, all your concepts, all the feedback from the client, from the stakeholder, and you've brought it back down to an actual beginnings of a final design. Well, not beginnings, that is the final design. They didn't like this, so that's why that's just, you don't worry too much about the page being tidy or whatever, but there's their final design. Now, they haven't used a huge amount of colour throughout. That's only because they used yellow modelling clay. But if we come back down into here, and even the final design, the colour is hinted at. It's not smacking you in the face. It's not saturating the sketch. You don't want to overcome your sketch. You don't want to block out your sketch with big blocks of colour. So you can see the colours being used. Look, I didn't even worry about making sure it stayed within the lines. You can see that the colour has been used just to highlight certain parts. and suggesting, you know, plastic material using this very clever shine effect, shadow effect. So it's not just about your final design, it's about the entire process you go through to come to your final design.